Welcome in, everybody. 5 minutes with Sean, maybe 10. I hope you enjoyed the last 2 weeks of the value proposition, both of yourself and your product. I enjoy doing those shows like that. It's a lot of fun. A lot of thoughts get out there. A lot of conversations start. So I'm excited for you guys to kick off. We're getting into the spring selling season, which brings us into inevitably the show season. Big industry shows. Ourselves are putting on a show this fall here in Madison. So it's everywhere. Everyone's doing it. So I thought what I should do is go seek out the man with all the hacks when it comes to shows, presentations, preparation. Enter my man, Brent Weiss. Brent, how are you, man?
I'm super, Sean. Thanks very much for having me on.
Dude, thank you. I'm glad we connected this day. I saw you up in Vegas. We chatted a bit and we talked about some other things, and I thought it'd be fun to follow up with you and have you on. So thanks for making the time. Look, you watch a lot of presenters. You deal with a lot of preparation, people reaching out to you. You're part of that. You're a fractional CMO. Do I have that right, Brent? Is that
That's
right?
correct. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So with that comes a lot of, help, little different movements, right? So what is the biggest Brent presentation no-no from a presenter standpoint?
The absolute biggest one is thinking that you don't need time to prepare. I think that's huge. I think there's a lot of people out there, and bless them. I don't use that word a lot, but bless them, because there's people that will. I think for people, if you think that you can go in, slapping your talk, slapping a presentation together, right up to the wire of walking onto that stage or walking into that boardroom, without proper preparation, without diligent rehearsing, and really mapping out what you want to get done there, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. And I do believe that, people that think because they do it a lot, they don't need that ramp up time. And I'm telling you, you can see it a mile away when it's half-assed or kind of put together at the last minute.
All right, so this is interesting because let's have full disclosure, right? I'm not the guy who puts it together last minute, but my presentations are about, I use a slide very, sparingly, very minimalistic.
Sure.
Couple of points, and then I vibe, right? I go on what I do because I am used to talking about the subject matter. So I found, Brent, that when I originally did it and I over prepared, I freaked myself out. And I got for me, just because the way that I conversate is the way that you and I are conversating. So whether it's
sure,
or I'm in a room of 50 people, if I'm talking about something that I'm into, the passion is there, the mindset is there. So I guess I would say that, do you think that is there a point where you can over prepare? I guess now that we're talking about being diligent, being ready, can you get yourself in a rut where you then look robotic, or if things don't go your way, you can't move around, you can't be nimble?
Absolutely. I think you can definitely prepare to a point where you make yourself nuts. And that's a life hack, right? You can under prepare for anything in life and go into something unprepared. You can over analyze something until you make yourself nuts. I think the same goes for presenting. I think the same thing goes for when you're acting or running lines. You can really beat the hell out of something, and then it falls apart because you've done so much on it. However, I think you got to find the middle. I think you've got to find that middle, because for me, I'll say that when I'm coaching speakers and when I'm working with people and when I'm working my own thing, especially in this industry, when there's seasonal conferences and there's events happening, it's a lot of these opportunities are looked at as revenue generators, and they are if you do them the right way. If you do them the wrong way, you don't get asked back to a lot of those shows. So I always approach it as I need to go out there as an educator and not a seller.
Number one,
Okay,
that was
that
my number one rule is don't sell your presentation. If you present your subject matter correctly, people will want to know afterwards who you are, how you got here, because the things you were talking about gave them insights they were unaware of.
right. And I think with talks, one of the things, one of the ways I approach talks, I don't just bring in. So if I'm at an automotive show, and so for instance, a couple of years ago in Tampa, I did a session about automation versus AI and disseminating the two, and using dealers in the room to interactively figure that out as a group. But what I did was I took outside information and brought it in. I always try to back up. I come into my sessions, and I know, Sean, you've seen some of them, and we've talked about some in the background, but I try to come into it as either myth busting, disseminating, clarifying, simplifying. And I'll do that by doing a lot of research. So when I say you have to come prepared, is I like to bring outside information into my sessions. If it's about customer CX, if it's about AI, if it's about anything, I try to bring in historical or outside information. So that means I have to go do research. So it's not just me slapping together stuff from my company out of the last case study we did. I want to frame that up with something really interesting. I want to take things into my sessions that bleed into other things, and help put pictures together, not by just the same old things that the audience is getting from a multitude of speakers or a multitude of these sort of podcasts that happen every day that we see in our LinkedIn feeds. I want to try to find differences in nuance. And I do believe there's a lot of speakers out there that want to bring their best to the table. And if those speakers are doing that, they're taking time to outline their talk. They're taking time to rehearse it. They're taking time to find interesting ways of presenting it. And it shows when they do that, even if they're not the most polished speaker, they're still finding ways to connect with the audience. And if you're kind of in if you're kind of in a mode of operating where you've just done the talk so many times, and we all know this, and there's people in our industry that have to go out and roll out that same talk. Maybe they're talking to associations, maybe they're talking to OEMs, whatever it may be, but you're rolling out the same talk. You get into that autopilot, and that's what I mean. It's just good to, even if you're doing the same talk over and over again, just rehearse it, find different ways of presenting it, because I've watched speakers in vertical and outside of vertical roll 45 minutes on stage, and it's kind of a yawn fest because they think they're doing a really nice job of it. They're super relaxed, they're chill, but they're really not bringing anything dynamic to it. And they're not, maybe not necessarily passionate about what they're doing. So this is why I always go back to, like, the more you really make some time to invest in what you're doing, you're going to reward the audience with that. They're going to want to hear more.
So I think that's interesting because I feel like I'm able to, in a presentation, know if you set that presentation up or if your company's marketing department or someone above you
Sure.
that you are now having to give, right?
Right.
And that's where it becomes like this 45-minute yawn fest, where you're basically just reading the PowerPoint. I mean, Brent, is there anything worse than someone who just reads what's already on a screen and put already too much on there to begin with?
Yeah,
Taking ownership is important of a speech.
absolutely. For all the company marketing teams out there, and they get tasked with this. Marketing teams get tasked by leadership all the time. We need to put a presentation together for one of our executives. They're going to do this thing, and the executives have these egos of going, just give me something a couple days out, I'll be fine, because my ego is going to support me on this. And that's such an incredible fallacy, because the marketing team can build a great deck. They can make it look good. They can fill it full of great stuff, and they actually become the subject matter experts because they're the ones building it. What I like to do in those cases, and what I recommend to marketing teams that have to do this for executives, is give the executive the framework. Don't give them everything, because if they want to march out on stage and be the subject matter expert on something, the companies that I work with as a fractional CMO, I make all my executives give me the answers. I've worked with so many executives and put talks together for them and put sessions together for them, but I give them half of it. And I go, okay, now empty your brain out and teach me about this. I can put a boilerplate together for anything. That's the easy stuff. But if you're going to go out there and be a subject matter expert on something, I want you to tell me, and it's from one of the hacks, Sean. It's like what it was like, what happened, and what it's like today, right? Give me the 3 Ws. If we're going to talk about GA4, or if you're going to talk about data pools, or customer data pools, CDPs, whatever, if that's what you want to go out and really educate and wow that audience, I want you to talk through that like you've been writing and studying and researching nothing but that. But if you come out with canned shit and you're going to look at the screen and just read what's on the screen, and I've seen major executives do it, good for you. You've proven to us that you can read the written word.
Right.
But that's basically it. And the last thing I'll say to this is, for all of those people that, and fucking speaking is such an ego stroke, and it's such a dopamine hit, right? Especially when you've done a good job and you got everyone slapping you on the back and giving you the attaboys. And that's fantastic, because that means you've connected with that audience and you've really given them something that has lit them up. So that's the hit. But to your point about having things written for you, I watched an executive from a company come up from the US to a Canadian audience and talk about AI in the last year. And 4 to 6 minutes in, the Canadian dealers asked questions, specific questions. The speaker said, I don't know about all the technical stuff. I'm just a sales guy. So he fucking lost the audience 6 minutes into a talk. They put him in a keynote hall and half the room cleared out at the 8-minute mark, because he clearly said, I'm just reading off the page.
Wow.
And I'm not giving you, because it was just it was 100 miles long and an inch deep. But he flat out admitted on stage on a simple question that he could have diverted and stayed on his path. He said, I'm just a sales guy. I'm not the tech guy. Why the fuck are you up there talking about AI then?
Wow.
It's it's hilarious, but it's
hilarious, but
time.
It's sad, right? You look at that from a corporate perspective. You look at that as someone else's team, and you go to yourself, "Damn, man, that's what you put out there. That's who you put in front of the business." But when we talk about that, Brent, you talk about it's a mile long, an inch deep. It reminds me of just PowerPoints in general, right? Whether it's presentation to a dealer at a dealership or to a group of people at a session. Aren't there limits, Brent, to how many slides you should have per minute? Well, dude, I sat down through an agency pitch for a small multi-store group in the middle of nowhere the fuck, Southern Illinois. And these guys came in with a 91-page deck to present over 1 hour and 30 minutes. And I just immediately was like, we're not doing this. We're not fucking doing this. There's no way you're going to spend. You do not have an hour and a half to do this, Brent. How do people find that medium? Where do you strike a balance between just me wanting to pull my hair out and having a deck that still gets to the point? Do you have like a per hour?
Yeah, I have an algorithm.
What's the hack?
Can I call it that? I have a hack. Yeah, I do have a hack for that.
If it's not a real algorithm, sorry. If it's a Brent,
no, it's not real. It's not based in real math or any sort of like proper theory, but it's a hack nonetheless. I will give you that. Here's what I do. Sean, you call me and you say, Brent, I got a 45-minute talk to do. I want to do it on social media marketing. I want to do a social media presentation on the new social media algorithms. I got 45 minutes at this show they've asked me to do, right? And I'm going, okay, great. All right, first thing we do is we take away 10 minutes. We turn it into 35 minutes. No matter what time, whatever time the show gives you, if it's over 30 minutes, if it's 45 minutes to an hour, take off 10 to 15 minutes. Leave that for questions, right? Leave open time for questions, and leave a little bit of time after questions to get your stuff and get out of that room if there's people behind you. So first and foremost, cut time off the back of it. Now you've got 35 minutes. Then what I do is I go, okay, I get my Post-it notes out and I start building what are the core pillars of this story arc. So I'm going to talk about social media algorithms. So I'm going to go, okay, what it was like, what it's like now, and what's happening. So if I use those three pillars, I start building my content underneath it. So I honestly, Sean, I start looking at all those bullet points and I go, okay, if I've got 6 bullet points under each of those things, what it was like, what were the algorithms like? Okay, I got 6 points under that I want to talk about. If I use 2 minutes on each of those points, that's 12 minutes. My next column, another 2 minutes on each point of what happened, when did they change. If I do another 12 minutes there, and then I've got what it's like now, and I do another 12. I put time on each square post. Each Post-it note has a time on it.
Okay.
Like, it's weird, but I'm prepping another AI hackathon for a different show in Vegas in a couple of weeks. I run the table captains through a 90-minute blow-by-blow to the second run of talk or run of workshop or whatever it is. So I take that time, and that way I start to actually visualize the whole talk to the second. And that helps me format it and go, okay, I can't have every bit of content. I got to be smart with my content to cover those buckets.
Love it.
And that's how I keep it. So that way I'm not dragging in a 90 slide. You know, we know people, Gifford will challenge himself and go out with a 90 slide deck that he has 30 minutes to do it in. And he'll challenge himself to see if he can do it. Few people can do that. But if you're in front of people and you, like you said, you can keep smaller things on the slide and you can use those 2 minutes to talk to the audience and really work through your own brain about those things and give them so much more value. But do that exercise with the Post-it notes and the time, and always shave 10 minutes off the back for questions and getting out of the room.
People, look, the guy's giving away free advice. I mean, I hope you're writing this shit down. I hope you're taking notes at home, because this is the kind of stuff people need to hear. And I think it's important that as a user, Brent, as the person who takes in the speech, what advice do you have for people who might be a yawn but have data you care about? Or how do you suggest to people, instead of maybe getting up and walking out, what is Brent's sort of, I'm going to get up and walk out of this session? What does that for you, and how can users kind of feel that and say, wait, I'm not there yet, I need to keep giving this opportunity?
Yeah, the only way I'll if I have the luxury of actually being able to sit sometimes at shows and take in a session, I will walk out if it's a bait and switch, right? If I've read a synopsis, someone goes, you know, I'm going to talk about creative strategy for OTT, and I'm like, okay, I want to go check that out. And if I'm 5 or 7 minutes into it, and all of a sudden it's turning into a platform pitch or a services pitch, I'll just flat out go. And that's what I was saying earlier. It's so important to remember for the audience: go in and be an educator, don't be a salesperson. Because the level of trust that an audience, no matter how dry the content is, if you're educating them and they're there for that, if you're doing something that, you know, we could walk through something that's, you know, state to state privacy laws with F&I paperwork, let's say, right? It's not a sexy topic, but there may be people in that, at that show or at that conference, that need to go through that. And if you do that in a diligent way, and if you're from a provider, if you're from a service provider that handles that stuff for dealers, you know, do it in a way that's going to keep them in the room by making it interactive. Make it a workbook session. Do something where the audience is actually participating, but also just keep it on the education. Don't, you know, if it's such a good talk, or if the information's there, those dealers will all come talk to you after and want to know what you do.
Do you think that audience participation is something that is done at a different level of speaking ability, or do you believe anyone can do it? How do you feel about that? Because I find some people are very uncomfortable with that. Me, I love it. You know, I do Oprah shit. I jump off the stage. I'm not interested in sitting on the podium. We're in it. We're talking. We're with it. What's the thought there? What do you think that takes?
I think it just goes back, like I said, to preparation, rehearsing. I think anyone can do it, Sean. I think there's some people that are a bit more mobile in the room. I think that's one thing. But when I say interactive, like, you could do something on privacy laws, and honestly, you could do like a Slido quiz on screen for people to do on their mobile phones, right? Like you could make it a contest while you're in the session. You don't have to be a seasoned speaker to take a mechanic of interactivity and bring it into a session. One of the things I did years and years ago was I used to split the room up and do this like sort of reworked Family Feud where one side of the room competed against the other, and I picked 5 or 6 dealers, and they came up one by one, and I would do this thing on gamification a long time ago. But I was able to train a sales staff like these regional reps that were in a completely different vertical in automotive, how to bring that mechanic to their trade shows. And the people that were attending their sessions loved it because they're maybe the second or third time they've spoken anywhere, but the mechanic of just doing something and having the audience participate kind of takes the pressure off of you having to speak through the whole 40 minutes or the whole hour. You're giving things over to the audience for them to do, and you are just puppeteering. And I had guys that were, and women, men and women, not just guys, but men and women who either were coaches for their kids' teams or leaders in different organizations in their town. They know how to move people around. So we're just bringing different muscle memory into speaking. They may not be the best speaker, but they're good orchestrators.
See, and that's again comes back to if you have a skill and then you can organize and you can prepare, then
Sure.
you can probably put this together. I think I also would like to add the fact that I am someone who, when I go to these shows, I'm in the back of the room. I listen. If I don't like what I hear, I walk out. That's easy for me. I
Sure.
do find that a lot of people sit through stuff. So I recommend to participants, look, if you're not engaged, your time is valuable. There's multiple sessions going on at once. It's okay to leave. Brent, am I wrong in saying it's okay to leave a shitty presentation to go find another one?
And I'll say, yeah, it's absolutely fine. Saying it as a polite Canadian who will sit in a session for the whole thing till the end and suffer along. Like, it's not that you're suffering along, but I do it. Sometimes what I'll do is I was at a show recently where I was coaching 4 speakers. So there were 4 people speaking that I was coaching. 3 of them ended up in the same time slot at this show. I said to all of them the day before, I'm going to be in and out of your rooms. I'm going to see all of you, but 3 of you are at the same time. So if you see me ducking in and out, it's only because I want to make sure I want to get a good 15 or 20 minutes from each of you. So I'm going to move in and out. So I'll preface that. Sometimes I'll find a speaker afterwards. Like, so say you're speaking on something, Sean, and I go, okay, Sean gave me the goods for what I needed from his talk. Like, I read Sean's write-up. Sean took the time to put a good write-up together. It's got good information. I'm like, oh, I actually, there's something in this that I want to get some intel on. And let's say at the 12-minute mark, you hit on that and you expand on it. You close that part of your talk up and go, okay, I'm going to move to this now. Yeah. I may duck out then, but I may find you afterwards and say, hey, I ducked out because I wanted this. So thank you very much. It was exactly what I was looking for, but I wanted to go catch something else that was in the same time slot. It's not because I'm bored, but sometimes, like you said, you could be in just a conflict of schedule. And if you're there solo, you got to make the best use of your time. If you're there with someone else, divide and conquer.
You said you were going to do it as a polite Canadian. You totally did. I mean, there's a vast difference here. Before I started,
I'm not that polite.
Before I came back to Tampa this year, hadn't gone to shows in years, and my last show was at Jason Harris put a deal on in Toronto.
Yeah.
And he had me speaking at it. And so I had this whole presentation ready to go. And the young man before me comes up and he's talking about all these things. And I look at my wife and I go, fuck. She goes, what? I go, well, this is this kid's first time speaking. He's all excited. Everyone's jazzed up. She goes, why? What's the problem? I go, my speech literally just trashes everything this kid just said. Like, it tells you to not look at this. This is all bullshit. Like, I'm literally going to trash this kid. I don't want to do this. She's like, you're going up in 7 minutes. I'm like, I know. So I just got to rework. So I pulled out my phone. I'm looking through the deck and I'm like, okay, let's just, we can't change anything. We don't have time. The deck's already submitted. No. It's there. It's live. But because we bullet point, we don't have to like over commit to anything that's crazy on the screen. It's just, I knew that when I got started on the topic, the passion would take over and I'd get very frustrated. So I turned the whole thing over. I turned it all up. in such a way that this presentation gave this guy all like the validity. So everyone wanted to talk to him about his product, and no one wanted to
Sure.
talk to me. And then my wife looks at me, she goes, "Well, that's because he's Canadian. You're from the U.S." And I started laughing, and I was like, "Okay, they want to talk to Canadian." But it was one of those shows that we had so much engagement and so much honesty in Canada, in a different way, in a different room than I could not ever have, but that I generally have with U.S. dealers. So I found that to be very unique about the level of engagement from room to room. So I don't know if you
Yeah,
see.
we Canadian audiences will look at things in a very different lens. Um, Not all the time, but sometimes you can get in front of a crowd in a at a US show, and you can whip out the platitudes, you can whip out some big numbers, you can work up some excitement about something that gets a US audience going, I need to talk to this guy because I want to be first. I want to get on this train right away, or whatever that is.
Shiny object
Canadian,
people,
so
Brent.
yeah, it's a shiny object thing. Canadian, like, so I'm talking just dealers here.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I find the nuance is, if your hype man game is down, you can whip an audience up into a fucking frenzy down where you are, and
Yeah.
have people going like, I got to get on whatever this is. I don't understand it, but
Yeah, and
I'm
that's
in.
my
Like, I want to
style,
be
dude. So when I
first.
bring that to
Yeah,
Canada, I'm like, let's go, like let's get the frenzy. And there was no
yeah.
frenzy. There was just
No, because they'll
basically
go,
looking at me
that's
like,
nice, Sean, but we're
I
gonna
don't think
go. We'd
so.
like to go talk to 5 of your clients to find out if this is actually worthwhile. Like, they will go, that's really lovely of you to give us this talk, and we love
Yeah.
your energy.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and while it's really informational what you gave us, we're gonna now go do our own research to make sure you're not full of shit. It's just a slower roll. Like, they'll go
It
like, if
is.
five Canadian dealers don't want to be first, they want 5 people they know who maybe also know what you're talking about, and then they'll be like, okay, we're a bit more comfortable.
That has been my experience with every Canadian client I've ever come in contact with. And now, obviously, we have the great Jeff Hunter, one of Canada's best, working with us, and he
Mhm.
brings that vibe every time we talk. Just in general, just in general, we'll never our meetings that we've had as a company never involve the word sorry or appreciation as much as when we brought Jeff Hunter into those
Right.
discussions. And it's different. So you're the frenzy, but see, that's important for people to know, Brent, right? Because I would
Mm.
probably now, if I ever got a chance to speak in Canada again, I would most likely completely change how I approach my show.
Well, they say that one of the key things, and I subscribe to this sometimes, and sometimes I don't, because sometimes it doesn't matter, depending on the talk and what you're asked to come and do. But they also say know your audience, right?
Yes.
Understand the audience. So there's no harm and no foul, especially if you're traveling to a different country. And I've spoken in a lot of countries, a lot of different countries where there's a lot of translators going on, and different things happening. But it's not a bad thing to go. Automotive, it's easy, right? What kind of, like, but again, you should still ask, like, what kind of automotive staff are coming? Are they marketing people? Are they F&I people? Are they service people? Are they parts? Like, everybody at every dealership is uniquely different, and department heads are also got their own things going on. So it never hurts to do that. But also, going country to country, if you have the good fortune to go somewhere, um, you'll find out from the organizers what kind of group you're going to be. And, like, for instance, right before the pandemic, um, if I'll back up. If my friend Ricardo at World Shopper has me come over to World Shopper loves it when Brent goes on last. The audience has had way too much wine and cigarettes at lunchtime, and everyone's half cut. And I go on and I'm throwing marshmallows at people, and I'm running all over the place, and there's organized chaos, and people are laughing, and we're having fun, and that's great, right? Portugal and Spain, Brent, go have fun. We want you to have fun, be stupid, tell your jokes, do your stuff. I was briefed. I was going to speak in China just as the pandemic broke. So while I was being briefed by the Chinese National Automotive Dealers Association, or whatever they're called, one of the things was there was a kind of this joint effort between the Ontario Association, the Chinese, the National Association, and they're like, when I was meeting with them, as they were briefing me up, they go, Brent, you don't have to do any of your funny stuff. Like, I always do audience participation, and I'm like, well, why not? They're like, they won't understand it. The translator was telling me they won't understand it. So if you're doing that, we don't know how to, like, she had just watched clips and watched some other stuff. They like, I don't know how to communicate that to them. So, and the execs of that association were like, give them your takes on these things, and that's enough. So it's like, okay, so I don't want to muddy the waters. I don't want to make a translator, get busy, because I found that too. I've spoken a couple times to Russian dealers and had those translators. Like every translator is different, so that's where it really pays to talk to your organizers. But even if you're speaking locally or you're doing something, it doesn't hurt. Sometimes I get asked to do specific talks where I don't need to know what the audience is all about, because I'm going with my do one thing different talk, or which is a completely different talk. It's a culture talk, so it doesn't matter what that audience is. It kind of suits any and all industry. But sometimes, Sean, you may get asked just to come and speak at a show, and the organizer doesn't have any real idea of what they want you to speak about. They may say, Sean, you just speak about whatever you want, but that you may go to that organizer. That's lovely, thank you. But what is your group kind of yearning for right now? What educational bits what are they squawking about the most when you guys are all together? It doesn't hurt to ask.
Know the audience, very, very important. All right, so you've given us more than enough hacks. This is, Brent is a man who people pay him for this advice, people. So he's coming on here. He's giving it to you for free. You better be writing it down, because
you're getting a bill, Welsh. You're getting a bill.
Dude, look, you'd be the first ever podcast guest I had to pay. I mean, sooner or later, someone's going to ask me, I don't know. And maybe I got to get one of those sponsors all these other podcasts have. Brent. No one sponsors the show, so I don't know. Maybe.
No, it's lovely to be on.
It is. It's great. So, all right, man. So, because you've been gracious with your time, I want to take the last couple of minutes, wrap this up. What is Brent into right now? What is Brent working on? What are the projects people should know about that Brent is doing?
Oh, I was gonna say I'm into the new Desert Shark single my friend Stephanie's band they just put out. It's called Deeper. It's pretty cool. No, what am I into though? Right now, the fractional CMO work is something that I do all the time. Backstory real quick, right, is I had an advertising agency for a long time in Toronto that I was a partner of, turned it into a software incubator, and then we got rid of it. We exited. We were very fortunate. We had buyers that they came in. And so after that, after sort of figuring some things out, that's when I went into the fractional work. So I sit behind different companies. There's a few in automotive, and there's some that are outside. So that's kind of the day job, and it's fun because I get to sit at a 30,000 foot level and help guide different things, and that's always something that I'll love to do. There are some companies inside the vertical that I'm doing more creative strategy for, so there's more branding and more keeping them linear and keeping more of a content play out there. But the things that I'm really into right now, last year I went back to school to the Rotman School of Business at the University of Toronto and became a certified executive coach. So I wanted to blend, and it's on my LinkedIn, but and I'm very public about this, but I'm a 30-year guy in AA, went in as a young 20-something punk, and then grew my chops as a speaker. And I was training people as speakers. I started that years ago. And it was actually our mutual friend, Lori Halter, that actually teed me up with my very first speaking client, which since then I've been mentoring and working with all kinds of executives.
Nobody knows them better, Brent. Nobody can better in that world than the wonderful Lori Halter.
Yeah. And so I've been doing that, but then I really wanted to formalize a different approach to working with teams of people and executives by blending the 30 years of recovery work and working with men in recovery, mentoring them, sponsoring them through. But then how do you really kind of hone an executive who needs to work on their day-to-day with their own teams and their own organizations? But then how do I bring all of that out to them, as well as giving them some stage presence, giving them these hacks, helping them not just become better leaders and better executives, but giving us better things to listen to and watch on stage. right? I just my goal, the thing I'm most passionate about is I really, when I'm working with execs that approach me about, can I work with them over 4 or 6 weeks for a speaking engagement that they have, I really pound that in. It's like, I don't want you sell. Like, if you're going to sell, we don't need to work together. But if you want to be engaging, if you want to educate, then let's get to it. So that's the shit that gets me out of it.
I love it, man. I absolutely, I'm in love with it. I think I'm going to be reaching out to you and talking to you about some ways we can have some fun with our event coming up this fall. Because I know you've got a bunch of those hacks. I know you got a bunch of things going on. So I'm
Yeah.
certainly going to be in the communication. Brent, where can everybody find you, man?
Everyone can find me in downtown Toronto, just east of the river, and I'll be the guy with the white hair. No, you find me on LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn. I'm always on LinkedIn. I my fucking profile's on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. That's the easiest place to find me. I do have an Instagram account, but LinkedIn is where I post more about places I'm speaking, things I'm working on. As you said, with the speaker hacks, and I know you've been really great, Sean, with like every time I post one, you're one of the first to comment on them. I've got a whole new series of a bunch of them coming out because they've always been well received, and it's just more of that. Like I said, if you educate people, if you give of things, people will want to talk more. They'll want to do business. They'll want to do those other things. So there's going to be a whole bunch of those coming out. But hit me up on LinkedIn.
You may be one of the only people who's come on my show, and not the first question that everyone has for me is, what the fuck do you do for a living? That's the first question. And then why do you ask me that? Well, because you never sell on LinkedIn. You've never said anything about your company on LinkedIn. Why is that? Well, because that's not what it's there for. I'm there to educate. I created this podcast so people could find out who I was, so they wouldn't bother me because they knew that I was a jerk or they knew that I was loud or obnoxious. That's the whole point. This show exists to thin the pool, man. I don't have a sales team. I've never had it. This is my best salesperson, and it's to root out. Like, go back. Anyway, I challenge this to everyone. Go back and look at I have 300 episodes. Go look at episodes 1 and 2, dude. They have like thousands of views, and it just goes off and down and down and down.
It just dwindles because it all does.
Actually want to keep listening, which is great. Like, I know my nephews aren't impressed by my thousands of views a week, but I am. You know what I mean? And so I do it for, cheesy as it sounds, I do it for one opportunity, man. One opportunity a month.
Yeah, I'm so geeked out when and a couple of times at Native that just passed, a couple of times people that were up for speaking like kind of stopped me in the hall if they found me, and I had a couple of conversations just helping people like that last 30 minutes before a talk or whatever get like just kind of listen to what's freaking them out or what's going on. So, and that's really lovely. Like I everyone's got a healthy ego, right? And I sometimes don't do a great job of shining a light on what I do and how I do it. And I think the speaker hacks and just kind of putting that content out there, little bits here and there, are the thing where I get to have some fun with it, say some stupid shit through it, but help someone. And I've gotten tons of messages on the background saying I used one last week, and I was like, that's fantastic.
It's organic selling, dude. It's organic selling. I had a buddy of mine text me a link to Instagram and say, is this your guy? And it's a link to one of Jeff Hunter's killer videos, right? And I go, yeah, that's my guy. He goes, this is why I'm buying a Canyon. I've been watching this guy's video. This is why I'm buying this fucking truck. And I'm like, awesome, dude. Like, we can help you. We have dealers, whatever. And so it's, if you're not trying, and Jeff Hunter's the same way, don't sell on your pages. He preaches it to the dealers every day. Stop selling on your pages. Educate, be there for your community, show who you are. Yeah, I've been in car sales my whole life. I never sold a car in my life. I connected people with what they needed. I listened. I don't know shit about cars. I don't. Without a Maroni sticker, I could have never sold you a new car. I don't know shit about.
Oh man, yeah. The only reason I know anything about the car business is because in the early days of our agency, we were lucky enough to get the Ontario Toyota Dealers Association, and thank goodness for those men and women who own those dealerships, because they were the ones that taught me about this industry. Like we were doing entertainment, we were doing finance, we were doing packaged goods, we were doing food, and then we got into automotive kind of last. So you can only learn. So I'm always a little indebted to the automotive industry because there were people that took so much time to teach me something. So I think that there's just a bit of the acumen that comes forward. And the last thing I'll say is I don't maybe overdo it sometimes on the channels with content or things, because um, I think there's a balance of creating content, putting things out there that are of use for people. But if you're doing it too much, if you're out there if you're out there just promoting too much, are you actually doing any work?
Back here, I post 3 times a week.
It,
That's it.
right.
3 times a week, every single week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I haven't missed a Monday in like 350 weeks. I'm very proud of that. My Wednesday, Friday, it's can go and come. But to me, it's about the communication of others. It's about being and seeing your posts, commenting on your posts, being a part of the conversations you're having and you're starting. That to me is more intriguing than putting up my own shit, to be frank with you. I don't,
Yeah.
I'm not big on that front. I get people tell me, Sean, you don't play the algorithm game. Your videos could see more people. Don't care. Not interested, dude.
Doesn't
I
matter.
do this for the algorithm. I do this because I love it. I do it.
Yeah, I think people will seek you out who want to work with you truly. And if you can come to the table trustworthy, responsible, creative, and strategic, I think you'll be great. But if you can't deliver, it doesn't matter how much content you put out there. It doesn't matter how shiny and flashy you make yourself look. I think if you can't deliver on simple things in a professional, tight way, all of the algorithm pushing and everything is for naught. I'm going to pump your tires a bit, Welsh, because I do appreciate the fact that when on LinkedIn, here's a river, right? Here's just, and so I dig it because I think that people need to take time to turn off. People need time to like read books that aren't business books.
Yeah. Get outside
Like
Fridays, Brent. There's
I like stop.
outside
Don't
Fridays.
like don't read yet one more business book about how to sell better or how to do this better. I just bought Maria Bamford, the comedian's newest book called "Sure, I'll Join Your Cult." Right? It's like but I read historic stuff. Like I don't read business stuff. Like everyone always boasts about. I read 40 business books this year. Like fucking give yourself a break. Like I'm going to. I was just saying to someone, I'm traveling to Tokyo at the end of April for 10 days.
Cool.
Not going for work. I'm not going to speak.
Pleasure.
And someone said, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm just gonna fucking walk around and figure it out." Right? Like I think we need is like there's so much. There's just so many waves of things and words and platitudes that it's like LinkedIn's a wonderful thing, and the community in automotive is super strong, and there's so many good people, and it's not about good people or bad people, but I think we all owe it to ourselves, regardless of what group you're in or what you get fucking geeked out about. I think that people need to just go out and experience things a little bit more and just keep it off the channels.
Yeah.
Like go to a play and don't take a selfie of yourself
Don't
in the
post about
lobby.
it. Right. My wife
Like,
and I always joke, is this
get
really
on a
happening if
get
we
on a
don't
get
post
on a
about it?
plane and actually don't take a picture of yourself on the plane. Like nobody cares.
Yeah, Brent, I don't take a picture of myself on the plane because I typically sit up
We're
front.
all hey, you know
I
what?
don't.
We're all guilty. We're all guilty of taking
I,
stupid selfies and something. Going
I,
like I used to take my coffee selfie at the airport before I left for a thing. But what I mean. Like, we all fucking do it. It's
I don't want it
it's
to look
somewhere
like
or
a
the other.
post. You know what I mean? That's
We
why
all
we
do
don't.
the
That's why I don't
we all
take.
do the cringy shit.
Yeah,
But
agreed. No,
but
dude,
I'm
it's funny enough.
trying more. Yeah, but I'm
Funny
trying
enough.
more to stay away from just living every moment of my life on these channels. And these things are wired to keep us.
It's all part of an addiction, bro. You know it.
Yeah, yeah,
You've been
yeah.
through AA.
So
You know what addiction looks like. You know how to stay away from it.
yeah,
Whether it's technology or booze or drugs, it's
but
all
yeah,
the
but
same
but tech
addiction
but
brain.
tech is
Yeah,
really
man.
insidious, man,
Heck
because
yeah.
and we all get dragged into it. I'm fully disclosing that there's moments where it's like, dude, like put the phone down, right? Like whatever I'm looking at, like just go do something different for an
And my
hour.
wife will yell at me, and I'll be like, "You're totally right." And for 3 minutes, I'll be like that. And I'll be like, "Cool, yeah, all right, what?"
Yeah, yeah,
It just,
yeah.
and it is. That's why the Fridays started. And honestly, the Fridays are the best performing posts of anything that I put out on any given week ever. And that's good because the point is to get outside, be a human being, live your life. Like, if all you want to do is work, the word grinding, like, pass, dude. Grinding's for shit that's broken. I'm not interested in doing anything
Grind,
like that. I want
grinding's a yeah. Like go get a grinder and go like smash it against some metal in your backyard, right?
wait, look, the
Like
only
yeah,
grinder
yeah.
I got works a certain way. You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying? So,
go learn, go take a cooking class, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And there's nothing. And again, I always joke about it because everyone's hustling and grinding. There's nothing cool about the word hustle. It's
There
like the
isn't.
worst
There's
word
nothing
ever.
cool
It's
about the
like so
word
you're just
hustle
cheating.
or
Like
grind. Again, unless I'm using my grinder to roll a joint. It's about the only way I think grinding's cool. Other than that, I'm not interested. So, Brent, man, thanks a lot. You are absolutely wonderful. You've been gracious with your time, and you've given the guests or the audience,
yes,
the guests. You don't
the
worry. There's
guess.
other people here. They're not. I turned other videos off, Brent. You can't see them. We have a live audience. It's unbelievable. No, you gave the audience something wonderful. I really appreciate you doing it, man. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate you, Sean.
All right, everybody. That was Brent. You know where to find him on LinkedIn and just east of the river in Toronto. Thank you guys so much. Have yourselves a wonderful day and be sure to join us next week when we jump into a fun topic of third-party vendors and price increases. It's also that season.
Oof.
Have a great week.